Now recognizes the gentleman from Maine, Mr. Poliquin, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you very much, Mr. Montoya and Ms. Perez, for being here today. We really appreciate you being here and being forthright with us. Mr. Montoya, Deborah Hernandez and Sandra Henriquez, am I correct in assuming they were senior personnel at HUD or are senior personnel at HUD?
Ms. Henriquez was the Assistant Secretary, and that is a political appointed position. She is no longer with the organization.
Is that a senior position at HUD, sir?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. And how did they both meet Deborah Gross?
I think Deb Gross came to their attention, quite frankly, by somebody in, at the time, an appropriations committee who was forwarding her name to HUD to hire.
Okay. And Deborah Gross was a lobbyist advocating for the funding of taxpayer dollars for affordable housing. And so that might have been how they got to know Ms. Hernandez and Ms. Henriquez, who were in senior positions at HUD. Is that correct?
That's correct. And our indication is that they actually have a personal relationship outside the workplace.
They did or they did not?
That they did at the time, and I believe they would still do it.
And am I correct in assuming that Ms. Gross was paid more than the normal Federal employee at that grade level?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And she was hired by Ms. Hernandez and Ms. Henriquez. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Am I correct in assuming that Ms. Gross, when she was at HUD, but still a lobbyist for funds dispersed by HUD for programs she was lobbying for, that she also hired 2 other employees that were former lobbyists to come work with her at HUD? Is that correct, sir?
One of them was a former lobbyist. The female she hired, I don't believe, was a lobbyist. But I'd have to go back and check my record.
Do you find that odd?
I don't find it odd that you would bring people into an organization that you had worked with if they were good. I do find it odd that she was bringing them in for the purposes of helping her, deregulate.
Sure. And part of that work, I believe, Mr. Montoya, was Ms. Gross, who's a former lobbyist now, working at the organization that she used to lobby for.
Correct.
Okay. She was attempting to weaken the income verification system such that taxpayers who were funding affordable housing would have less of an opportunity to verify that those taxpayer funds were going to the right people in the right amount. She attempted to weaken that system. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir. A system that at one point was costing the Department $3 billion.
Okay.
They brought it down to $1 billion.
Okay. In 2013, I believe there were $1.2 billion of improper payments made by HUD to people who shouldn't receive those payments, or they received too much. Is that correct?
That sounds about right.
Okay. And Ms. Gross was attempting, who's the former lobbyist now working at HUD, was attempting to weaken that system with 2 other people that she hired from the outside. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Do you think it's normal practice here in Washington, sir, I'm a freshman, Congressman, for these large agencies that are responsible for dispersing taxpayer dollars for good causes to hire people that used to lobby them? Isn't that sort of like hiring the fox to guard the chicken coop?
Well, it depends on what position you put them in.
Yeah, but these are senior officials at HUD. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Am I correct in assuming that former Deputy Secretary Maurice Jones, Jennifer Sabrowski, Francie Youngberg, Jonathan Horowitz, and Elliot Mintzberg sent out an email to 1,000 individuals, including 47 of their HUD staffers, lobbying or asking them to lobby 17 U.S. senators to pass legislation favorable to HUD where they worked? Is that correct, sir?
That is correct, sir.
Is that against the law?
Well, that would be a determination by DOJ.
And what have they determined?
They didn't accept the case from us as a referral. They referred it back to HUD for administrative action.
Okay, so they did not, Justice decided not to determine if this was illegal or not. Do you think it was illegal, sir?
Sir, I'm not in a position to be able to answer that.
Do you think it broke the spirit of what we're trying to do here in government?
Absolutely, it broke the spirit.
Okay. Am I also correct that one of these individuals, Elliot Mintzberg, tried to impede, or did in fact impede, your investigation regarding the lobbying of 17 senators to pass legislation favorable to HUD, and he did that by intimidating staffers and by also trying to influence testimony of other witnesses. Am I correct, sir?
That's correct.
Okay. Does the new HUD Secretary, Julian Castro, have any experience in dealing with affordable housing issues?
Sir, I believe when he was the mayor in San Antonio,
Does he have any experience in dealing with affordable housing issues, sir?
I don't know that I could answer that.
Okay. One last question, if I may, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask you if these former people, these individuals are still working at HUD, and if not, what they're doing. Former Deputy Secretary Maurice Jones is no longer at HUD. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Deborah Hernandez, where is she?
She is now in the
Is she at HUD, sir?
she is at Ginnie Mae. She is still
Okay, she's still at HUD, still being paid by the taxpayer dollars, even though she's been involved in this mess.
That's correct.
The gentleman's time has expired.
May I have another minute, sir? I'm a freshman. I think you would, that's a request that's fair.
The gentleman we recognize for one more minute, and we'll offer a 6-minute questioning to.
If you would, Mr. Chairman, I'll claim that additional minute. Thank you.
Very well. The gentleman's recognized for.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Green, for that consideration. I appreciate it. Mr. Montoya, are you surprised that hardworking American taxpayers have lost their trust in government when you have huge agencies like HUD that are responsible for doing good things for the American people but abuse and misuse taxpayer dollars, hire lobbyists who used to be pulling for funding and now are advocating on the inside for their former organizations? They hire individuals without interviewing them. They pay them more than they should. And then when they're caught, they try to impede your investigation by intimidating staffers and trying to influence the testimony of others. Do you think there's any reason why the American people have lost their faith in government, sir?
Well, I'd want to categorize the career federal employee versus what we have here. In many of the examples, these were not career federal employees. They were in the department for a very short period of time.
So you think this is all?
The gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Mr.
it very
Poliquin.
much.
The gentleman, I'm sorry.